Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. This is the Bigfoot edition. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. I am also the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. A little bit about me: I've been researching the paranormal for close to over 30 years, but professionally almost 30 years, along with my wife, Amanda, who I've started out dragging around to different said to be haunted places and stuff like that. And so, anyways, so that's pretty much about me. I've been doing Bigfoot research for almost 15 years now. I've had multiple sightings of Bigfoots. And now, by sightings, I mean it was an encounter where I could say that could not be anything else but a Bigfoot. And I always say you have to have your own encounter. I don't care if you're a believer, a skeptic, whatever, somewhere in the middle. You have to have an encounter, and you can apply this to anything: ghost, Bigfoot, UFOs, whatever, anything paranormal. You have to have an encounter where you can say that couldn't be anything else but. I know you guys hear me say that almost every episode, but for the new people, we've got a lot of new listeners. Thank you guys for joining us and subscribing and downloading our podcast. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your support over on our YouTube channel too. We're doing really well over there. So thank you guys again. So anyways, let's get into this. First off, some news. Amanda and I have officially formed a business. We will be doing Deep Woods Productions, which will not only include the paranormal research, but it'll include survival stuff too, because it kind of ties into the Bigfoot research, and I'll get into that in a minute. But we'll also be doing other things like documentaries and stuff like that. I want to do a documentary on the history of downtown Bryan. It's just basically we live less than a mile from it, and downtown Bryan just has so much interesting history. And I'd like to interview some of the shop owners and stuff like that have been there for a long time and hear their stories. I think that'll be interesting. So we will be kind of expanding out to doing different things, not just paranormal, but survival, probably stuff about us, our travels, because Amanda and I do travel quite a bit and stuff like that. So that'll be coming. So keep your eye out for that. We're going to start creating multiple YouTube channels, maybe multiple podcasts too, talking about different things, different subjects, and whatever else. So if you haven't gone over already, I just set up the Deep Woods Survival podcast. That's doing pretty well, as to be expected. And, nobody knows about it yet. So it's getting some downloads, but not a whole lot. So if you do me a favor, if you're into survival, camping, hiking, fishing, anything to do with outdoors, pew-pews, I don't want to say the other word, but going to look for things and bringing home stuff, trophies, if you will, that hopefully you're eating and consuming everything, just going out there to pew-pew an animal for no reason. And then survival and prepping stuff, gear reviews, all that fun stuff will be over there. So if you're interested in that, please go listen to that. I've done a couple of those podcasts so far. I'm going to try and do one a day here to get that built up so that there's quite a few for you to listen to. But again, thank you guys all for your support. We really appreciate it on both these channels and on our YouTube channels and through our Facebook and other social media. Thank you guys again. Can't say that enough. You guys are amazing. So let's get into this. Okay. So people ask me all the time, what if you did a stealth camping trip to go look for Bigfoot? And I kind of laughed at first. I'm like, how the heck would I do that? And so I thought about it. I'm like, okay, you know what? That does kind of make sense. If you go into a Bigfoot territory, not like Joe's, but another place that was more secluded, completely away from people, and you set up a tent, and then you set up camo either tarps or camo. They have it's kind of like it's almost like a tarp, but it's see-through. It's like a camo blanket almost, that you can basically hang from trees, and it basically makes it harder for them to see you. Now, I kind of talked about this on my survival podcast too, but Bigfoots, I mean, and you got to take all this with a grain of salt. There's no proof of any of this. So that's one thing you have to remember. Just take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like I said, you have to have your own experience and you have to come up to your own conclusions about Bigfoots. I mean, there is no experts out there. There's nobody that knows everything about these things. Otherwise, we'd have one in a museum somewhere probably. And, I'm not going to talk about the GOV at all, but I'm pretty sure that they have some live specimens, or multiple live specimens probably in different places that they're studying for probably military research and whatever else. So stealth, let's talk about stealth Bigfoot camping here a little bit more in detail. What would you have to do to really mask yourself to make sure that the Bigfoots didn't really know you were there? What if you went into an area where they had blinds and maybe that you found, if you're lucky enough, maybe you found a structure or maybe even what looks like a survival shelter made out of sticks and stuff like that? What if you found that? What if you found fresh prints all around that? You could put up maybe a hammock and again use different types of camo netting all around your tent to disguise your location. You'd have to be severely quiet. You would have to essentially maybe spray yourself with the spray that they use for hunting that would remove your scent. And then you'd have to make sure you weren't in a heavy winded area where it's, something's blowing your scent all. You can't get rid of your scent completely, but you don't want to have that anywhere. And then you'd have to have food that you could consume that would probably have to be cooked, I would imagine, because if you are sitting there cooking, they're going to know you're there. I mean, they're going to smell. Anybody could smell it. Animals have a very good sense of smell. I think Bigfoots have a really good sense of smell as well. I think their vision, their hearing, their sense of smell is probably way advanced from us, way more better. This is just my theories. These are all just theories, so just take this with a grain of salt. Like I said, if you're a non-believer and you're listening, you're rolling your eyes, you're going, oh, how do you know that? And just experience things that have happened to me out in the field where I've seen a Bigfoot or whatever. Haven't ever really taken very many by surprise. They took us by surprise most of the time when I've had encounters, let's just say. But I would essentially also think that maybe you hear about hunters all the time. They put ghillie suits on and they put a deer stand up in a tree and they go up there and they're sitting there hunting for a Bigfoot and they're being quiet and whatever else. They're up there for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes they stay overnight in these stands, which is insane. I would imagine. I don't know how you do it. You have to be like Superman, be up there and hang out all night. But if you're in a ghillie suit and the Bigfoot comes walking by and doesn't know what the tree stand is, you have an opportunity to possibly document one. So you'd have to sit up there, I would imagine, multiple nights. You would have to do some research in the area, maybe not make a lot of noise. Essentially, you just take up reports and do some day searching around, find some fresh footprints, see where there's tree structures, see where there's activity at, and really kind of talk to as many witnesses as you can. And then you set up that tree stand kind of in the middle of all that. Maybe you have multiple people out there spread apart, and maybe you have a walkie-talkie that goes into your ear. You have a little attachment that goes into your ear. So when it squawks, you don't hear it, but you can whisper into it and communicate with each other in case the other one's experiencing something. That's something I think you could do, especially if you're wearing a ghillie suit. Another thing is maybe you don't even take a tent or anything like that. Maybe you find a little area where, there's some brush or whatever, some trees that are kind of in a circle or whatever, put a ghillie suit on. And then essentially, maybe that's where you hang out all night, maybe leaning against a tree, and hope that maybe one stumbles by you. And then maybe you have a camera down somewhere in your lap or whatever, so it's not seen. But yeah, I mean, that would have to be like a super close encounter, I would imagine. But that would be cool. I think that's something that I'm going to look into in the future, is doing some Bigfoot stealth camping. If you follow Steve Walls on YouTube here, or if you follow anybody else that does this, essentially stealth camping, I should have said this when I started. Stealth camping means that you're going into a location, and this doesn't apply to what I'm trying to do. I'm not going into a location I shouldn't be in, but these people go into a location they shouldn't be in and essentially try and spend the night there without getting caught. In a nutshell, they camp, they eat, and then they basically film themselves doing it, and then they go to bed and then get up in the next morning and try and get out of there before anybody realizes that they were even there. And most of them are pretty good about not leaving a trace. I know Steve Walls, I really like him because he goes through and cleans up not only his own stuff, but everybody else's that, is out there. So anyways, that's stealth camping. If you want to know more, look it up on YouTube or do a Google search or whatever. Okay. People keep asking me the same questions. Where do Bigfoots live? Well, let me see. I'm going to go this way. Let me move out of the way. All right. So on this map, where you see this Bigfoot just over my shoulder, we're just a little bit down here. So we're real close to Bigfoot activity. There's probably more Bigfoot activity than this in Texas, but from the Louisiana border all the way up here into Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, this is all Bigfoot territory. And what people don't realize is on the other side, let me scoot back in, there's other sightings over here. They're not as many. And then at the bottom of Texas too, there's a lot of sightings. So, I mean, I've done multiple podcasts where I talk about how to find Bigfoots and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, please go back and listen to some of our other podcasts where I go into detail. I actually use a map and I kind of show what I'm looking for and go from there. Okay, so how do I find Bigfoot? Kind of the same thing. Witnesses, here's how I do this. Normally, I look for reports online. I look and see what's the newest reports, where are they reported, and I start to build. I take those reports and I put them on a map. I put them on a Google map. I put a pin there. And then as I hear more and more reports, I might go into a town or something like that and just put a notice out that I'm there and ask if any Bigfoot witnesses want to come forward. And if you do, you can always contact us too. If you're in Texas here and you want to talk to me about some of your Bigfoot reports or, an encounter that you had or whatever, I'd love to hear it. In fact, our audience would love to hear it too. But yeah, so that's what I do. I go and I try to meet with people, and then our clientele, like Joe, his area is like Bigfoot Central. So he's constantly talking to his neighbors and talking to other people in town about Bigfoot and getting reports and trying to steer us in the right direction. And so we can plot those Bigfoot sightings on a map, and we can get a better idea of where we want to try and investigate and do a night investigation and stuff like that. So that's the first part of it, is just getting all the reports, finding a location with multiple sightings within, a couple, 4 or 5 miles of each other, maybe a little bit more, maybe up to 10 miles. Because those, if you think about it, these Bigfoots are just hunters. All they're doing is going around basically looking for food, scavenging food, water, and then doing whatever else they do. Who knows if they have hobbies, or I know there's been some sightings of Bigfoots watching kids play basketball or playing or whatever. They seem to be kind of interested in looking into windows to see what's going on. It's probably like a TV for them. They're watching to see what's going on the reality channel. Hey, there's a human. Let me peek in their window and see what they're doing. And they scare the heck out of us. And then we scream or whatever and they run. But so finding reports, plotting them on a map, and then going out to those locations. And usually during the day, I usually go out to those locations during the day. I look around and I look for signs. I look for hair. I look for footprints. I look for branches broken off way too high to be a normal animal. Anything above about 5-6 feet, you're looking at a bigger animal. Now in Texas, they say all the bears are gone. I don't believe that. I think there's still some bears out here. They also say the wolf. Certain types of wolf breeds are not here, and I talk to hunters all the time. I just saw one the other day. I don't know what they're talking about. So, I mean, these guys are out in the field. They know. They're witnessing it. So that's important. Getting out there and finding an area where that looks like it's active. So I talked about Bigfoot. Okay, so I said I would talk about Bigfoot and survival, how they kind of coexist. Well, if you think about it, when I leave the house, whatever I have with me is whatever I have for the trip I'm taking, be it a day trip, camping trip for the night or 2 nights or a week or whatever it's going to be. I have to have whatever supplies I need. So I'm taking, everything I need to survive for that amount of time with me. So when I go out into the field, if I just have a day pack on or whatever, and I get lost in the wilderness, I need to be able to start a fire, probably. If I'm going to get stuck overnight, which hasn't happened yet. I've been pretty lucky, but I've gotten turned around a few times. Sometimes when you get into these forests, it just all looks the same. Even though you put a mark on a tree or you hang a ribbon, sometimes you hang them a little too far apart. And you look back and you're like, okay, where's that other dang ribbon? I know it was here somewhere. And then you think you went this way or you think you went that way. And all of a sudden you're off the track and then you can't find any of them. So you're trying to find your way back to where you were. And then you're completely confused because you're looking around trying to find that ribbon. Yeah, it gets a little frustrating. And then especially when cell phones don't work out in the wilderness, that happens about 80% of the time. I'll be out there and want to call Joe or I want to text somebody or something to let them know what's going on. Hey, I just found this or I found that. And I'm trying to be stealthy about it and be quiet so that if there is a Bigfoot in the area, I'm not disturbing them and not having them feeling like, this guy's loud and obnoxious. I'm out of here. So, yeah, I mean, it's real easy to get lost out in the forest, especially out like by Joe's. I mean, you can walk, you can look around and there's just miles and miles and miles and miles of forest. I mean, it's crazy. And if you're not careful and you don't have what you need when you're out there, you can get yourself into a real trouble. It might be 85 during the day, but sometimes out here in Texas, especially kind of towards the winter months, it'll go from like 80 during the day in the fall to 40 or 50s at night, which it's not that cold. But when you don't have a blanket or you don't have anything else and you're in shorts and a t-shirt, it can be kind of cold. So that's stuff that I carry with me. I've gone through my Bigfoot bag before, the bag I carry with me. But having a compass, having a map of where you're at, or at least a general idea of where you're at, or having somebody that knows the area, that lives there or is around in that area is very important. Knowing the location. I always say you need to know your location. Even if you've never been there and you're just walking off into the forest because you think you see a tree structure or whatever, and you just want to go in and document it, you still need to know your location. You need to know where you came from and how to get back out. There's a lot of people that get lost in the forest, and some of them are never found. And that's a whole different thing. But anyways, so when I'm out there, like at Joe's, the last time I was out there, if you watched my videos of camping on Joe's property for 2 days, I was completely off grid. I had no cell phone, no electricity, no water. I had to make my own food, and essentially had, of course, I set up the tent for shelter, which I took a very large tent, which I shouldn't have. It was just me. I didn't need a 10-person tent for what I was doing. Recently, I've gotten a brand new tent, and I'll be maybe doing a gear review on it here over on the survival channel. If you want to go over there and take a look at that, it'll probably be up in a couple, 3 or 4 weeks. Anyways, so I was pretty much in a survival situation. Yeah, I could have gone down and got water or whatever from Walmart or whatever. And then I had my car right there, which was great. But in the middle of the night, oh my God, I had a 30-degree sleeping bag. I had my sleeping pad. I slept on a cot, so it was up off the ground, and it was extremely hot that day. I think that was Friday night, or no, that was Saturday night. And this is a summer tent, and it had a tarp over it, but the whole top is wide open. And it went from 85 and comfortable, actually too hot, it was very humid, to no humidity, and it dropped down probably almost to the teens that night. I froze my yangs off. I went to sleep with 2 sets of socks on, jeans, of course, a shirt and a heavy duty jacket. I had a beanie on my head, and then I had my hood pulled up over my head. This jacket's like a rated down to like -20 or -30, whatever it is. And I seriously froze, even inside the sleeping bag. I was so cold. And I ended up hiking back over to my car, and I was scavenging around at 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, that's when I had that weird woo woo noise. And I'm looking around, I'm going, okay, that's not a person. That's not an animal that I know of. And so, yeah, I ended up grabbing a blanket and ended up having to go out the next day to Walmart and getting a much heavier duty blanket to put over me. I basically wrapped myself up. I was in a mummy sleeping bag, but that, if I hadn't, had the things I needed, I could have, gone into, I kind of froze, could have gone in shock and whatever else. So that's why it's important to have the right gear with you when you go out to these locations. I did bring a space heater with me. I had plugged it into I knew it was going to be off grid. So I took a battery bank with me, and I plugged it in here before I left, and it turned right on just fine. Of course, as soon as you get out in the field, I plug it in, and it seems like electronics never work in the field. It's the weirdest things, between cameras malfunctioning, audio recorders malfunctioning, and now this. So I froze that night. I got a little smarter the next night, but if I had been better prepared, I would have essentially been better off. So, and then also having the right gear. I mean, I couldn't, I started a bonfire on his property, which he was okay with. I burned a bunch of his old stumps and some old brush that he had laying around, and from the trees that they cleared. But if I'd moved the fire just a little bit closer to the tent and kept it going throughout the night, it might have been a little bit warmer. Something I could have fixed. And I can go on with this survival stuff forever. But like I said, if you're in the woods with Bigfoot, looking for Bigfoot, you have to be prepared, because a lot of the times you're up in an area where you're in the middle of nowhere. You're very far from everybody. There's no people around, and you're essentially, if something happens, you fall and get hurt, you whatever, you run out of food or snacks for the day, or you get caught out there, you can't make your way all the way back to your car, you're stuck out there, and you have to be ready for that. You have to make sure that you have whatever you think you're going to need to basically survive through the night, if you have to stay the night out there. One thing I always carry with me is a light jacket, which keeps me pretty warm, especially during this spring and summer months. I don't ever usually wear it, but every once in a while it gets cold out here. Another thing that happens is we're in Texas. We get pop-up storms here and there, and it just starts pouring rain out of nowhere. You don't have a jacket, you're going to get soaked. And if you're not wearing the right kind of pants that are either water resistant or waterproof, or that you've sprayed with whatever to make sure it's waterproof or at least water resistant, you're just going to get wet, and nobody likes to be wet. Even if it's 60 degrees out and you're wet, you can have a good chance of becoming hyperthermic, excuse me. So these are all things that you have to basically prepare for when you go out there. You have to have skills. You have to know how to read a compass. You have to know how to read a map. You have to essentially know how to navigate through the forest. You have to know how to find water if you need it. I always carry a water filter with me just because I don't want to carry 10 pounds, 15, 20 pounds worth of water on my back. It's just annoying, and it slows me down. And of course, it makes me hot and everything else. So, like I said, your clothes are kind of part of your survival gear when you're out there. Even if it's supposed to be 100 degrees, you probably should wear some kind of pants, because at night there's a good chance it's going to get cold. And have a jacket with you. Even though it's 100 degrees, you might get cold, and there's also a chance for rain and whatever else. So anyways, that's how survival kind of plays into the Bigfoot research. If you're out in the field, you're out in the wilderness, and you don't have what you need, and you absolutely need that item, be it an axe or a knife or a fire starter or another way to start fires, or you just can't get something burning because it's just wet. And that happens a lot out here in Texas. And you don't have some kind of fire starter that burns hot enough to dry the material. You're not going to have very much fun. So anyways, all right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate your support. Again, if you want to go check out our Deep Woods Survival channel, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, we talk about, like I said, everything outdoors: camping, hiking, fishing, pew-pews, and preparing, and gear reviews, and we're going to be doing all that over there. So, and we're also going to have a YouTube channel, will be linked to this channel, so you guys can check that out as well. All right, guys, you have a great night. We appreciate you. Thank you again for your support and your comments. If you want to come on to our show, please contact us either through this channel, the YouTube channel. You can leave a comment below. You can go to our website, deepwoodsparanormal.com. Our social media has my cell phone number, our email address, and you can message us through that way if you want to. We have a lot of people that do that. They want to message us through Facebook, which is great. That's fine. And then also email or whatever. So lots of ways to contact us. Like I said, we're always looking for guests to come on and talk about their Bigfoot experiences, or if you just had some kind of other paranormal experience. We love to talk to everybody. We want to hear about your story. Again, there's no judgment. So thank you guys again. We appreciate you. You guys have a good night.